Hi, welcome to this live webinar. We're going to give you one good reason why you should make a will to settle your affairs when you die today, and many other good reasons. For expats living and working abroad, the whole issue is complicated. We've all got one funeral to go to during our lifetime, which is our own. But you can see other people around you, grandparents, parents, younger people with accidents. When the time comes, it's a time of family grief. But then their affairs need to be settled, and they need to be settled with the law of the land. The one good reason why expats living and working abroad in the EU should have a will is that under EU law, your worldwide estate needs to be settled in the country in which you're resident. So if you're an expat living and working abroad in the EU, that country will want to assess your worldwide affairs in terms of settling your estate. This leaves your family and your business subject to local taxes, subject to local laws of intestacy, and subject to different rules on how the assets may be distributed. So let's consider some of those in a bit more detail. Other good reasons. In the UK and Ireland, you've got the right to make a will. This is under English law and define who the beneficiaries are. If you die without a will, then there's a prescribed way in which the estate is distributed among legal beneficiaries, which are our spouse and children, or remote relatives. But without that nomination through the will, you don't get to choose who will benefit. And that could cause some issues. In certain jurisdictions, if you consider places like Cyprus and France, there's forced heirship. You have to distribute the estate in line with the laws of the country. So that could be a certain amount to the spouse and a certain amount to the children. And that is it. So if a husband and wife want to leave everything to each other, that's not always possible if you're an expat living and working abroad. So we'll look at some solutions later, but you've got to consider what the forced heirship rules are. So if you're living abroad in Cyprus or France or Spain or Portugal, the local laws, if you die there, could enforce a settlement of your estate in that jurisdiction. And then on top of that, the money doesn't necessarily go where you'd like it to go. So that's a good reason to make a will if you're an expat living and working abroad. But why should you make one in different jurisdictions? We'll look at that issue slightly differently later on. So how can the forced heirship rules affect you inadvertently? Well, every time under forced heirship rules, the beneficiaries could be a legal spouse, or it could be a child. If children have their own children, so you've got grandchildren or great-grandchildren, they become potential beneficiaries, and therefore they could benefit from the will before your spouse. So you could leave a widower, but a great-grandchild could be a beneficiary of some of the estate before then. So it's all complexity and a chance for confusion, misunderstanding, and dispute in the family after the estate is finished. Marriage is also a change of legal status. So as soon as a potential beneficiary to your estate gets married, that person becomes the legally entitled to a share of those assets. So if you're worth $1 million and your daughter gets married, she's immediately entitled to 50% of that settlement of that estate if they get divorced. So you're diluting your assets unbeknowingly. So you could leave everything to your children by naming it in a will. So it's another good reason to make a will. Similarly, if there's a divorce, then that can impact as well. So on a divorce, generally, let's say the assets are split 50-50, then there's a dilution of the estate. But the divorced people lose any potential benefit to that asset. So that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. So if you're getting divorced and then remarried, and you want your second wife to or husband to benefit, the first marriage partner is no longer a beneficiary. As soon as the legal divorce comes through, they're no longer entitled to benefit on the estate under forced heirship rules. So think about that. The second partner's children or stepchildren, they don't necessarily benefit from the estate. So you could be a surrogate parent to those people. Unless you adopt them formally, then they're not automatically beneficiaries of your estate in a forced heirship regime. So something to think about. There could be a scenario where you brought up children as your own as a step parent, but you're not legally tied. Therefore, under forced heirship rules, those stepchildren aren't entitled to benefit. Do you want them to? It's a good reason to make a will. If you don't want them to, it's a good reason to make a will. If you want your children from your bloodline to benefit, because you've got no children by your second partner or your third partner, you've got no children by them, but you want your children by your first marriage to benefit, then you have to it's a good reason to make a will to make sure that they benefit in the right proportion that you want compared to your current wife or partner or husband. Gender neutral speak. It's a wonderful thing these days, isn't it? If you want more information on this, go along to our website. We've got lots of different sections on wills and estate management and how you can protect family and business living and working abroad in the event that somebody dies. If you want to chat with us, you can go along to our retained client service at proactpartnership.co.uk and we can answer your questions as you go along. Divorce is another scenario that changes a legal status. So if your children get divorced, that in-law is no longer entitled to a share of your estate under forced heirship rules, but they have grandchildren that you may want to benefit. So how do you account for that? A good reason for making a will, that you can ensure that your grandchildren are protected and that their family's asset and wealth is protected and not frittered away. Because if the children, the in-law has divorced and got remarried, the in-law's second partner is again potentially a beneficiary by default under forced heirship rules at the expense of your grandchildren, which may have custody with your in-law who's divorced from your child. Now that is a statement that needs a graphic, and we'll be putting one up that is available for download at our website at proactpartnership.com about just how complicated it can get. So what we're talking about in a family, that there are legal relationships. If you're married, you have a legal tie and you fall under forced heirship rules as a potential beneficiary of a potentially limited part of the estate. If you're divorced, you lose that right. But blood relative children, even after divorce, are still potential beneficiaries of your estate. To protect their inheritance, it's a good reason to make a will. Remarriage, second marriages, involve more people, whether that's you, your children, or your grandchildren. As they get married, that brings people into the net who've got a claim on your estate, directly or indirectly. To protect the family's um, uh, uh, wealth and business, it's important to, and a very good reason, to make a will. The EU law requires you to settle your worldwide affairs in the country of which you're tax resident. And the majority of EU countries have forced heirship rules. So it's something that you need to take on board and you need to be proactive with in terms of a very good reason to make a will. But what about your business as an expat? What about managing your business? Well, it's the same as wherever you live, except it's more complicated. If you've got a business and you've got no will and no succession planning within the business, then the business will go into administration. That will be a third party, expensive administration that will continue to run the business, or the business will collapse and close, and any goodwill and any embedded value in that business is lost. So you need a will for the business and a succession plan for the business to make sure that the shares are passed to the people that you want to benefit and not to a third-party administrator who will then wind up the business and distribute any net value to your beneficiaries. You could see a lifetime's work thrown away if you don't take care of your business with your succession planning. For more information, contact us at productpartnership.com, either through our live chat service at productpartnership.co.uk or from our main website. We offer a free review to expats living working abroad to review their family and business, will and estate planning. Another good reason to make a will is the taxman. So in a country like Cyprus, if an expat's living in Cyprus, inheritance tax is zero. If you leave it to the family, it's zero. If you sell it to a third party, there's some capital gains taxes, but generally there's no inheritance tax in Cyprus. In the UK, you've got a worldwide inheritance tax, 40%, and in other jurisdictions as well throughout the EU, you will have an inheritance tax. Sometimes it's charged on the estate on death, and sometimes it's charged to the beneficiaries who receive that money. It's a good reason to make a will. Now, the will creates a trust on death where the assets can be put in one place, managed by the administrator and passed over to the beneficiaries, which is a good plan. You can also make lifetime trusts, and unfortunately, they have been abused by many people in the world and used to manage their affairs and minimize the tax, which is no bad thing, and we do support that. But the important thing is that for family and business, you can use a trust to hold assets that actually avoid probate. Now, if you can avoid probate, then you avoid inheritance tax. Now, the trust may have some taxes, but there are steps you can take to gift to family and to use a trust as a third-party administration of your personal and your business affairs. So in the same way that a business is run by directors and not the shareholders, a family's wealth, their property, their investments, the business can be administered by trustees. Now, those trustees can be family trustees, and there are, again, tax issues, but the potential to avoid inheritance tax by using administration during your lifetime can be more than worthwhile for expat family business living working abroad. To look at more ideas on that, contact us at productpartnership.com. It's certainly a good reason to make a will. It might be a good reason to go a bit further. A will creates a trust on death, and it may be that an administration of your affairs during your lifetime could work. Gifts, depending on the size, can be free of inheritance tax and free of capital gains tax. There might need to be a bit of time before that's made. So even if you've got a long-term illness, you can still make those gifts and prepare and avoid the probate administration. Cross-border, the final good reason I want to share with you today for making a will is that if you're enforced to do an administration because you've got a property in Portugal or Spain or Cyprus, or because you're in the EU and they're forcing you to settle your worldwide affairs, your assets in other jurisdictions need settling as well. So if you've got property in the UK, if you've got business that's registered in Ireland or Malta, if you've got investments that are worldwide, those investments need to be managed in such a way. And it could be that in each jurisdiction in which you hold a property investment, a bank account, you need an administration for each of those. So despite the fact that the EU require you to have a worldwide administration in one country, you've still got to go to those second jurisdictions to do an administration. Now, there's two ways to do that. You can get your administration from the country in which you're resident, Cyprus, Spain, France, and then you can get certified translations of that. Then you get the apostilled, and then you can go along to the second country and use a second representative to start putting in an application there. You can't do that until the first administration is well underway. So it's going to be a delay of 6 to 12 months before the family can touch those assets. So another good reason for making a will is for each jurisdiction is that it speeds the process up and ensures that you're moving along in such a way that you can do a UK and a Cyprus and a Spanish administration of the affairs at the same time, minimizing the disruption and the cost to the family. If you're using a lifetime trust administration, then that will also involve, that will avoid the cost of doing the administration in each country. So it actually adds up both ways, depending upon how the expats affairs are sorted out. So if you've got assets in multiple countries, you need a will for each of those jurisdictions. The next step to protect family and business is to put your lifetime administration under the control of a third party. Those trustees could be your family or yourself, in the same way that your business is run by a board of directors. So lots to do there, lots to consider, but we've given you one good reason that expats need to make a will, and one good reason why you need expats need to make a will for every jurisdiction in which you've got assets, whether they're business, investments, savings plans. So consider that. Contact us at proactpartnership.com. If you just want advice ongoing online, you can subscribe as a Proact retained client, either just for online chat advice or for the full consultant service as a retained client. If you've got a specific question, we're for free reviews to all new inquiry clients, so you can contact us at proactpartnership.com. Thanks for listening. I hope you found it useful and informative, and I hope you found more than one good reason to make a will in Cyprus. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.